then we're like running, and I'm just running for my life. I don't even care where the cheetah is, and I'm hearing like this galloping coming towards me, like ever closer. And I'm like, I've just got to get to the fence. I've just got to get to the fence.
Hello and welcome to RugbyPass Offload with me, Christina Mahan. And today I'm joined by Jamie Roberts and Springboks legend Bryan Habana to preview this summer's Lions tour. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Christina. I feel extremely privileged. 3 years retired now, so every bit I get at being able to publicly be on something, I really appreciate. So hopefully my Instagram following goes up by 2 people after this podcast.
Oh dear. Well, it's a privilege to have you on. It's an honor. I am honored, so honored. Jamie, how are you getting on?
Very well, very well. One game left in the season. We got Leinster away weekend after next, and then 5 weeks off season and go again. Lovely. It's been the longest season in the world. I think we're week 52 this week at the club. So yeah, it's.
And what's this for you? Season 17. What season is this for you now?
Something like that, mate. I can't remember. I mean, my first pro year was 06, I think, probably 15, something like that. How many did you do, Bryan? 20 odd?
No, I did. Shut up! I did 15.
15.
Not that my last one counts because I didn't play one game in my last one, so technically only 14.
Yeah.
Jamie,
so
how's your body feeling? Are you feeling a bit burnt out at the moment? Like it's been a seriously long season.
Yeah, it has. I haven't played too much in the past month, 5 weeks. We've had this Rainbow Cup thing, so I think I've only played one game in it. So yeah, body actually feels all right. A few niggles here and there, but is what it is, isn't it? Rugby at the minute, it's kind of strange. Just hopefully, we've seen in the Prem already, crowds are coming back. I think in Wales, the test matches in the summer, they've got 2 against Argentina and 1 against Canada. They're going to hopefully trial some crowd for that by all accounts. Fingers crossed the Welsh Government push that forward. But I think we're into next season now in Wales with crowds.
Fingers crossed for Jamie Roberts for a TV gig.
Yeah, Jamie's just going to sell himself on this.
Jeez, I'd love to be in South Africa, my man. I'd love to probably be hanging around with you on the TV out there, but it's not looking great.
No, well, I mean, you definitely can come. If you're not going to do the 10-day quarantine, I'm not sure your missus is going to allow you to be giving data youth and everything. 10 days, you're not going to justify that one as much as you.
Yeah, that conversation is not looking great either. So, yeah, I'll rule myself out of that straight up.
Okay.
And now, just before we get stuck in, because obviously you were having a little bit of a go at Jamie beforehand with his setup, but you were also calling him King. And I do want to know, and I'm sure our listeners would like to know, where did this nickname for Jamie come about? Where did King Jamie come from?
So I did get the absolute honor and privilege of being a part of probably one of the best, greatest weeks of my rugby career. Barbarians 2009. We had a ridiculous team, from Matt Guitar to Jamie Roberts, Jock Fourie, Drew Mitchell, Joro Kathoka. I think we had Farid Dupre at 9. King, we had Beast into Arira, Victor Matfield, Bismarck du Plessis. It was ridiculous. And ended up beating the All Blacks for the first time in something like 40 years at Twickenham, which was incredible. But it was actually the week leading up to that game. I'm grateful that we didn't do testing ahead of that game, because King might have not actually been on the field, given that he was the King of London that week and showed us what exactly it is to be a barbarian. So that name has forever lived with him.
Only for you though. No one else calls me it, mate. It's just you. So whenever I see you, and we've played against each other many times down the years since then.
Can I phone a friend? Can we phone Matt Guitar right now? And
he does call me King as well. All right,
he's got you there.
Okay, so Drew Mitchell, so are we going to continue?
Yeah, that's fine. Fine. Okay. I'll leave it there.
More than one.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jamie was the King of London. I think he showed us exactly what it meant to be a barbarian, both on and off the field. And his reputation didn't belie him. He lived up to every single bit of it. Literally walked into clubs and everyone was like, this is the King. Like, it was insane.
The crowd's just parted today.
Absolute joke. There we are. Great week. Habana hat trick. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good week. It was a very good week until Nick Mallet drank out of opened my champagne man of the match bottle without me asking.
Did he, mate? Do you know, one of my highlights from that week, right, is we're training at Richmond Rugby Club, and I think it's on a Tuesday, and the lads we couldn't get the ball to you on the wing without dropping it. It was embarrassing. Yeah. And we come to practice dropout 22s, yeah. And Nick turns to me and he goes, right, Jamie, big lad, got a decent boot on you. You take the dropout 22. So we practiced one and I absolutely shanked it. And he just said, right, scrap that idea, you kick. I did one in front of the lads, absolutely spooned it straight to touch. So many fond memories.
King, that was after, I'm not sure if you remember, the Monday night, we obviously went to that Italian restaurant that the Bob was always go to. And WP Nell sort of got into a drinking competition by himself and challenged Nick. I'm not sure if you remember, challenged Nick to downing like half a bottle of wine. And that at that training where Jamie shanked that horrible drop kick attempt, I've never witnessed in a Barbarians week that the coach tells a prop to do fitness. We had WP fuming on his own, doing fitness. And Nick was like, okay, WP, you want a drink last night? Let's show you how good you are. It was brilliant. Andy Powell. No, it was a good week.
Let's chat about what the feeling is like in South Africa for the upcoming series this summer. Talk to me.
Oh, so I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a little bit nervous, given the fact that the Springboks have not played a game of rugby since the 2nd of November 2019. What a game that was, though. But it does feel like a decade and a half ago. So we've been playing Currie Cup type rugby against South African teams for a while now. But I think one thing, having experienced the Lions and knowing the fact that it is a once in a career, unless you're Frans Steyn, who potentially has the opportunity to be the first Springbok to do it twice since the professional era, which, I mean, he was 4 years younger than me when we started the tour in 2009. So to think that he's playing it again is freaking mind-blowing. But yeah, I think our boys are ready. Jacques Nienaber, I'm not quite sure when this podcast goes up, but announces the squad on the 5th of June. So, I mean, they've been going at it for the last 8.5 months in South Africa. Not much international exposure, but given the fact that most of the players are now coming back from injury and actually playing really well, both in South Africa and the UK, and some in Japan, I reckon it's going to be a brilliant tour on the field. It's unfortunately that off the field is, where I really believe a Lions tour is made. And without the traveling fans, without the experiences with players now living in bubbles, I just don't know. I don't know how much of a tour we can call this one, Jamie.
Yeah, you're nervous of those facts. I'm actually nervous that it'll galvanise the Springboks. The fact they haven't played together, I think there'll be this energy about them that they come together. The last test match I played was a World Cup final, which they won, obviously, in Tokyo. And I'm just nervous that, Jacques, Rassi can get that group together and then they just gel straight away. I know they're playing Georgia a few times, aren't they? Am I right?
Yeah, just in
the build-up. So I doubt the Boks will play in those warm-up games, Brian, or do you think they will?
No. So I think from what I'm reading today, the squad of 35, none of those will be released to go play for their franchises just because of the bubbles and if anything does happen. So everything needs to be contained. Galvanizing is definitely one thing that I agree with you on. And just on the players, I mean, you got Duhan Vermeulen, who has been playing phenomenally well. You got Handré Pollard over in the UK, over in France, who's come back. Eben Etzebeth. Peter Steph Toy has been laid off for about, 9 or so months and just came back 3 weeks ago and is playing phenomenal rugby. Got 2 Man of the Match awards already. Showed why he was Player of the Year in 2019. So I agree with Jamie on that. Just again, preparation against galvanization. It's going to be an interesting mix-up.
Brian, tell me, were you a little bit worried now when Kolbe came off over the weekend? Now, I know he subsequently went back on, but at the time, did you get a bit of a fright?
I did. I think seeing how Cheslin's been lighting up the fields all over the world over the course of the last 2 years, his prior went on to be named Clown of the Season. He was probably close to being in that final group of 5 as a player of the season. So yeah, he's a guy that I think, as much as Ellerman Jones shows that age defies not much for him, Cheslin defies that size does not mean anything, and he has been, along with Anton Duhan, I think one of the most enthralling, exciting players in world rugby over the course of the last 2 years. And there were many as South African, I'm not going to lie to you, that had their voices held back for quite a bit, but it was good to see him back in the field. And much like 2019, I think he got injured against was it the quarterfinal against Japan, and then didn't play this against Wales and came back for the final with a bit of injury. So I definitely even take a 85% Cheslin Kolbe at the moment, because he is just phenomenal.
Do you think that do you think that Kolbe is one of the players that might hold the key to beating the Lions team this summer?
I don't think so. I think he'll be someone that will provide a lot of X factor. I think, having played against the Lions, having seen the last 3 tours in particular, the upfront battle amongst the pack is where things do happen. I think Cheslin, given the experience that he's now gained over the course of the last 2-3 years since becoming an international player, his resounding ability over in Europe to come up against the best will definitely help him. But I think for the Springboks, it's going to be upfront. And I almost want to say, much like we saw in the 2019 final, that was where the game was won and lost. We saw some brilliant tries scored by Cheslin and Makazole Mapimpi, but it was the likes of your Eben Etzebeth, your Peter Steph-Toys, your Dwayne Vermeulens, Bongi Mbonambis, Sia Khaleesi's, the Frans Steins, the big boys, Frans Malherbe, those guys doing something phenomenal. So yes, X factor, as we saw in 2009, Jamie, Joffrey, making the difference there. But I think the pack is going to be where the engine room probably dictates this tour.
You know what? I agree with you, but I also think that the Lions will go over there and their game plan, come the tests, will be, do not let Kolbe have the ball in space, because that guy doesn't have to touch a ball all game, and then he gets the ball once in the 70th minute when the stakes are at the highest, and he can turn the game on its head. So as much as he's saying he's the sort of player that won't have the impact, games that won and lost up front, and the set piece against the box is everything. But man, they don't shut that guy down there on the hard grounds of South Africa. He can cause the Lions a huge amount of problems. Best player in the world at the minute for me.
Ooh, better than Anton Dupont.
Different positions, different qualities, but guy's an absolute freak. And you talk about defying size in the game. Like we had Shane Williams did that for years for us here in Wales.
Exactly.
Shane was half the size of everyone else, but Cheslin Kolbe is probably 3 times as powerful as Shane. Like the guy can run into contact and knock forwards flying. He's one player.
The past weekend as well, where he ran back and
I did,
incredible defensive effort, 80 meters and still won the turnover. And I think that comes from the 7 skills that he's learned. He's had to become physically, stepping up to the plate from a 7's perspective, which has been brilliant. So I don't think he's not going to have impact. I think he's going to have an impact, but I think the basis of the tour is definitely going to be the physicality. If the physicality is anything from 2009, that second test at Loftus, I think it's gonna be a pretty big one, hey?
But we're 12 years on the track, Brian. So players have got fitter, faster, stronger. The game has changed in the last 12 years. Certainly, S&C has changed. I know that was a physical game and probably one of the most physical test matches ever. But mate, this test series is probably going to be another level again. Yeah,
100%. No, I agree with you. I can't see it not taking a couple of leaps in, but I think the physicality, and if the law changes are very different. I think 2009 might have been very different if we were playing 2021.
There'd be 10 red cards. There'd be 10 red cards on that second test at Loftus. Jesus.
Easy.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think again, preparation is I know Warren Gatland's probably going to have a little bit more time on his hands together with the squad. But I know these Springboks are chomping at the bit just to get back, playing in that Springbok jersey and representing the country again, because it has been a very long 18 months, since that World Cup victory.
Well, Jamie, you just kind of touched off it there. You mentioned how the South African team that you played against in 2009 were kind of one of the most physical teams to have ever played in the game. So do you think that the squad now matches them for physicality?
Yeah, without a doubt. When you look at the Springbok pack, you always know the set piece is going to determine field position most of the time. And, certainly the breakdown, like the box, you don't match them there, you got no chance. So, when I look at that Bok pack now, and, Brian's already rattled off a few of the names, especially the back row. And I do you know what? I think quite a few players from the Premiership will get named to that squad on the 5th. Look at the Dupree brothers in Sale. Jasper Viesta's another one at Leicester, who's playing brilliantly. So, these guys, they just keep coming off the production line, don't they? These back rows who can just batter people. that this pack they have now is formidable. It won them a World Cup, especially the bomb squad. Their ability to put 5 forwards on the bench and come 60 minutes. Imagine playing a test match and you're absolutely blowing, and come 60 minutes, you got these guys coming off the bench. It's it's a pretty daunting experience for an opposition forward. So it's going to be no different this year.
Jamie, can I ask, how do you think Gats prepares for that? Obviously, you've seen what happened with Eddie Jones, and that England squad in 2019. He'll be very wary. I don't think Jacques Nienaber will potentially go for the 6-2 split potentially, given that it is up in Joburg, 2 of the test matches, and again, you might need a lot more. But do you think?
So tell me now. I thought that had changed, Brian. I thought it was going to be Joburg, Cape Town, Joburg. What is it now? Yeah. Cape Town, Joburg, Joburg.
No, it's still Joburg, Cape Town, Joburg. If I have my,
do they go back up?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
They do go back up and down. But I'm saying 2 of the test matches are up, much like 2009. Physically, do you think the Lions pack will be able to front up to the box like they were in 2019?
Yeah, I do. And I think there's some players. Look at lads like Tom Curry, boys like this are very, very physically capable. It's just when we, if we reflect on 2009, we played, none of the box played in the matches leading up to the test matches. We thought we prepared really well. We were unbeaten. We were unbeaten in those matches coming to the test matches. And then bang, we got battered in the scrum, if you remember, in Durban in that first test match. And so, you can't fall complacent. You think you're going well on tour, and then, the amount of scrum pens in that first test match in Durban, contributed hugely to us losing. So how does Gats prepare for it? Just hopes his top players are fit, I guess. I hope they play good rugby in the Premiership, keeps them fit, make sure he doesn't lose too many to injury. Not that you've got too much control over that, but I think he has the artillery to match the Springboks physically. I really do. I look at that Lions squad and I think, but they've got different things. Sam Simmons has power, he has strength, but he has pace, he has the ability off the back of the scrum. And you know how important that is, mate. Let's look at your second test in 2009. Remember, it went to uncontested scrums.
Yeah.
Sam Simmons arguably becomes another back off the back of that scrum because of his pace, his ability to get off and beat the back row. I think is going to add another dimension to the Lions' attack.
At your prime, would you have beaten Sam over 50 meters?
Sam who now? Sam Simmons? Jesus, probably
Sam
not.
Simmons.
Probably not. I mean, you race the cheetah, mate. I'd race a goat and probably lose. He's quick. He is frighteningly quick and quicker than most blacks.
No, he is frightening quick. It's actually scary to see him at full pace. He is probably quicker than most inside backs in world rugby at the moment.
Yeah. So I mean, and you asked about how Gat's going to prepare. It's about the game plan, isn't it? Do they roll the dice and go and really all out attack a South African team that hasn't played together for a long time, or does he go right? Let's just go after them in the set piece and the kick and chase, bring line speed. The thing is with the box, they have one of the best tactical kicking games in world rugby, if not the best. And the likes of Faf and Andre Pollard, if they're on song, they're pretty special. And you've got lads who can compete in the air as well. So I think that Gats, they'll be arm wrestle test matches. I can't see too much jouet. It's going to come down to the tight game.
Well, coming down to the tight game now, talk to me about, Brian, have you had your eye on Duhan van der Merwe over the last couple of years? Like, what do you make of him?
So I actually met Duhan. I'd never met him previously. I met him, I want to say, when did rugby get cancelled? Last year. So I probably met him the year before at a local Glasgow game that we covered. And I actually said to someone before the team got announced, I said, I think Duhan de Villiers, I said to Duhan, I think Duhan van der Merwe is going to be a bolter. And the reason I think it's a brilliant pick is he understands the South African psyche. He has been playing phenomenal rugby, both at club and at international level for Scotland. He brings something totally different. And I don't know whether he'll be in that starting 15 that actually gets to play against the box. But, there will be a little bit of, yes, I don't want to say resentment, but there'll be a little bit of something to prove when, he comes up, if he does get the potential to come up against the Springboks, because again, he has his own reasons for leaving South African shores, and, those might be valid. And, you just want to prove to his family and friends over here that, he is just as good as, if not better than those playing in potentially his position at the Springbok. So a massive bolter, but given the type of rugby he's been producing over the course of the last 16 months, I'd say pretty valid one. It's going to get tough for him to try get into that starting 15, but I definitely think Warren chose him with a reason, and that reason could be proved to be valid, come that tour.
Do you think that he might have, do you think that he has what it takes to make a starting South African 15?
On his current form, definitely. Yeah, easily. Again, everyone asks, why do so many South African players go overseas? And there's many reasons. Yes, it's the financial thing. Yes, we've got a very unique history, but each and every player makes that decision themselves. No one forces you to leave South African shores. But it's about when you get to the destination you're going that you then say, well, listen, I've left that behind, and I'm now going to prove, firstly, to myself that I deserve to be in a better position. And I think that's the reason so many South Africans have gone on to represent, so many different international countries, is the work ethic. I think is something that's a non-negotiable for many South African player, and just the amount of rugby talent we have here. So, yeah, I don't care that they went over to Scotland. I think it's definitely South Africans' loss, because if you see the type of rugby he's playing now, he would be invaluable to a Springbok team. But you get the likes of a Cheslin Kolbe and Makazole Mapimpi, who became the first Springbok to score a try in a Rugby World Cup final, which probably doesn't say anything about me. But you have those type of guys, playing as well. And you have the likes of a Sabu and Corsi, right behind them. That again is just as talented. So yeah, I reckon Duhan's gonna give everything he's got when he pulls that Lions jersey over his head. And like I said, I think it's gonna be great for us South Africans to see, because I think he's going to bring a different type of mentality to that Lions team that hopefully adds to their way of wanting to win.
It's going to be such a unique tour, Brian. You've spoken about for fans and stuff. But imagine what it's going to be like for players. They're going to be training back on a coach, back to the hotel. Probably not going to be allowed to leave the hotel. Or if they do leave, it's going to be en masse as a group. No mixing with the public. Yeah. Such a challenging and unique tour for players. How would you cope with that?
No, I don't think I would. I think knowing, and again, talking about past experience, having been a part of the Lions series in 2009, and as much as I tell everyone, the games itself are the most memorable, I think the tour really gets made outside of the, the four lines in which the game gets played. And I know 2009, the Lions going into communities in South Africa and giving back and building fields and donating clothes and making such a massive impact, to not only an economy, to communities, was so much more than just the rugby. And I know it was unfortunate that the Lions lost, but there was a legacy left, and it was much more than just what happened on the field. And I think that's, for me, probably the saddest thing. I think there is an element of the touring fans that maybe takes away from the players' performance, Jamie. I look at 2009, 2013 in Australia, 2017 in New Zealand, and just how much of a value add that is for the Lions players. And I'll never forget running out onto both Kings Park and Loftus in 2009 and thinking, what the
It's more red than green. Like an away game.
Are we actually playing in South Africa? But I really think it's outside of the field that the legacy gets left. And I think for the players, yes, this pandemic, has turned the world upside down. But I think particularly with something as unique, as rare as a Lions tour, to not have those experience off the field and do not have communities, impacted for generations to come, is unfortunately sad. So hopefully the on-field performances, at least leaves us with some brilliant memories of this tour, because you got to feel for the players. I wouldn't have coped. 8 weeks in a bubble, not ideal.
Brian, I do want to know, who is your starting 15 for the Boks first test? I want you to chat us through how dangerous each player is, because we need the inside scoop on what we should be looking out for in terms of their individual games. Yeah,
so starting 15, I honestly don't think we're Jacques Nienaber, who is the new Springbok coach, who has been appointed for a year already and has not had the privilege to coach the Springboks in a test match. I don't think he's going to veer too much away from what we saw in 2019 in that World Cup final. So Willie Leroux, I think at fullback, so I'm going to probably start from back up to the front. Willie's been playing really well over in Japan. I just think he brings a level of calmness, a very educated left boot. And I think between Cheslin on the one wing and Makazole on the other, who have both been playing really well in France and Japan, respectively, just has, that older head, which I think is really necessary. Lukhanyo Am, leader of the Sharks and playing really decent rugby with Damon Delendi, who has been phenomenal for Munster this season. I really think he has been a standout in a Munster side that's shown some form of revival. It's great. I actually said in a team, I said with another podcast a few weeks back that I'd have Damian Willemse at 10. That'll probably now change because Andre Pollard is back and playing some great rugby for Montpellier. He got through 60 minutes. I think he's been back on the playing field for the last 3 weeks. Faf de Klerk is an absolute terrier, and I think he is, I want to say, the fire in everything. The manner in which he's sort of directing that Sale Sharks team at the moment, and what he produces on field for the Springboks, since becoming a Bok, I think in 2016 or 2017, it's just scary. So for me, that backline is a backline that is settled. They do know each other from 2019. Again, it's difficult to say, having not played together for a year and a half, how they will come together. But I really believe knowing each other as well as they do and having gone through that experience will help. Then up front, Stephen Kitshoff has been captaining the Stormers in Rainbow Cup and playing some phenomenal rugby. Hooker's probably the one where I'm undecided. I had Bongi Mbonambi in my initial side a few weeks ago, but Malcolm Marks is a worthy replacement. Akafana Merwe over in the UK with Sale Sharks has been playing really well as well. But I'm going to stick with Bongi because I just believe he brings that level of experience. Frans Malherbe is maybe a few kilograms heavier than what he was in 2019, but still someone that has been producing phenomenal rugby for the Stormers or Western Province over in South Africa. And then at lock, so we've got Lutiaga, who I think is injured and probably won't be ready in time given the reports. But Eben Etzebeth also wasn't in my team a few weeks ago because he was also an injury. So I'm going to go with Franco Mostert and Eben Etzebeth in the lock position. I mean, Eben probably his arms as big as Jamie's
head. Not as big as my head. As big as my legs.
I didn't want to say that, but Jamie's head. So, and a guy who, again, is just, he brings a level of something on when he gets that field. So Eben and Franco, who's, again, just a workhorse. And then, your Lucy's in Sia Khaleesi, Peter Steph Dutoy, and Duhan Vermeulen. So bar the lock positions, it's probably exactly what we saw in 2019. And each and every one of those players is honestly playing a level of rugby that validates them being selected. So yeah, that would be my starting 15.
And now, Bryan, tell me, if you could steal one player from the current Lion squad and then add them into your starting South African team, who would you choose and why?
Ooh, who would I choose and why? I'm not going to lie to you. I'd have to see where I'd put him, but and I know he is a bit of a bolter, but Sam Simmons has been playing phenomenal rugby, and I would potentially even move Peter Steph Dutoy back to lock and have a loose trio, with Sam, Duhan, and Sia, because I think that would just be incredible. Like if I don't know if I'd probably play Duhan at 7 then and move Sam to 8 because he is an incredible rugby player at the moment, and what he's producing for Exeter has been nothing short of phenomenal.
Which of the 3 number 10s do you think would pose the biggest threat to the South Africans that we have on the Lion squad?
So I think Owen Farrell will probably be playing most of this tour at centre. I could be wrong. Owen will probably admit himself he's maybe not at the level where he'd want to be, and will hopefully get to that level by the time the Lion series happens. But I definitely see him playing more in the centre. So having played against both Finn and Dan, I mean, if I take Jamie back to 2015 and that World Cup quarterfinal, Dan was just playing phenomenal rugby. He's probably one of the most incredible people to gather their own Gary Owens. I've never seen anyone as good as Dan.
He's a 15 in disguise, isn't he?
No, it's ridiculous. Like I think it must be like a 90% recovery rate when he puts those up and unders under. So between Dan and Finn, I think Finn is sometimes someone that you don't know what you're going to get. When he's on point, he is one of the best to watch. But I think Warren will probably go for Dan, I believe, in that starting 10. And again, his skill set, particularly in a tactical game where he is so lethal under his own high ball. I think that would be something that Jacques Nienaber would definitely be worried about.
And Jamie, just to flip that then, who do you reckon that the Lions are worried about coming up against?
Well, we've mentioned Cheslin Kolbe. La Rochelle actually managed to contain him quite well in that Champions Cup final. I don't know if you watched it, Brian. We didn't hear Cheslin Kolbe's name for about 50 minutes.
Yeah,
he almost scored that beautiful try off that Dupont break, but they just managed to play a game that didn't allow him to get the ball. I think the Lions will be so wary of him. Faf de Klerk, just as a controller, as a tactical kicker, he's the sort of guy that you're in between the two tens on the pitch, and he can pick a corner, in a flash. He looks up. You see him just looking at the back three. He's constantly scanning the back three, isn't he? Just watch him, and then bang. He can just rifle an end of rank kick and have you, 5 meters from your try line. Mm-hmm. So it's just a back three. I think the way Steve Tandy is going to have to defend, it's managing Faf de Klerk's kicking game, because, it arguably won them a World Cup a few years ago. So, yeah, Faf de Klerk, Andre Pollard, wrap them in cotton wool if the Boks have got any chance, I think. I think they're there too. If tactically those guys are on song, the Lions are going to have a real tough time. I just rate Faf de Klerk. I think he's a fantastic player. And up front, driving Maul's coming. It's no surprise what the Falls are going to be defending. Leading up to the.
I've seen the game plan. They're going to do. They're going to play from their 22. I think Jock's told them they're not kicking inside their 22.
Yeah, it's just this ability around the corner, like the box, set piece, hit up round the corner, and they come as a 3 or 4. And if you can't stop that momentum dead, you're in trouble. So it's just those big carriers. Vermeulen is at the heart of all that. So I'd say those 3: Kolbe, Faf de Klerk, Joey Vermeulen.
Let's chat about 2009. So Brian, obviously you played against Jamie in that series. So I want to know, can you give us an insight into what was said in the changing rooms in the build-up to the first 2 tests?
So the first test was, there was a lot going around what happened in 97. So for us, I don't want to say 2009 was sort of redemption, because what happened in 97, it was a lot about, creating our own stories, and much like 2007, where we were like, we'd heard enough of 95. We needed to create our stories, own stories. We needed to get back what happened in 97. We were world champions. It was a massively physical, Lions team that had been selected. And, we knew that if we weren't going to front up physically, and I think we sort of rose to the occasion the first 40 minutes in that first test match in Durban, and then just took the pedal off the wheel of the pedal and almost lost that first test match, funnily enough. Second test match, again, a bounce of a ball, luck of a draw. It was, I honestly think that was one of the most physical test match I've ever been involved in 2009, that second test. I think seeing the hits going in, the ferocity of the collision, it was like I'd stand on the wing and I'd hear some of those forwards connecting each other, and I'd be like, oh my, I need to do that at some point during this game. And
thank God he's not playing the forward.
I was like, I'm so grateful that doesn't happen to me every 2 to 3 minutes. So for us it was about trying to bring back what we'd lost in 97. I think understanding the impact that the Lions series had. We all knew it was going to be our only shot that we as players are going to get at it, and if we didn't throw everything and the kitchen sink at it, that we would have come up short. Thankfully we didn't. I think we let it slip in that third test, where the Lions really just showed what that jersey meant to them. And yes, not all of us played that final test with Springboks, but I think for the Lions to then respond in the manner in which they did, having been so close, and I can only imagine that second test was one of distraught, for the players, because they had, put so much into the jersey. But for us, it was saying, listen, we are the world champions. We've got a lot of pride at stake here, and it literally laid the foundation for a phenomenal, 2009 for us. So, yeah, it was about creating our own legacy, creating our own stories, and putting South Africa back on the right Lions map after having lost it in 2009.
And what were some of the weaknesses in the Lions pack that you looked to exploit, say, coming into that first test?
Yeah, so we actually didn't see many weaknesses, to be brutally honest. I know, again, everyone talks about the foundation being laid up front, and we were like, this is a pack with experience. There's Triple Crown winners, there's Six Nations winners, there's European champions winners, and it was a team that we weren't taking lightly in any way. And I think again, how that first couple of scrum speeds and sets went, and how physically, things changed for us, giving us the upper hand was really important. But even in the second test, we knew that, like, having seen what happened in the last 40 minutes of the first test, that if we weren't physically going to be up for it, we were going to take a pounding. And I think of the likes of Simon Shaw, who, much like Alan Jones, is a workhorse and was just getting around the park and taking 2-3 players with him, in his carries. We knew that if we weren't going to step up, we were going to be found wanting. So we honestly had a lot of respect, and I'm not quite sure, Jamie, what the stories of John Smith arriving for that coin toss with Paul O'Connell and his number ones was said in your sheds, but that was sort of a tone setter for us in terms of, we're going to respect these guys, because we're gonna need to do something that if we don't do, we're going to be found wanting.
For some of our younger listeners, you just touched off a bit of a story there about the towing cost. Can you fill us in on that?
So the towing costs, so I don't know how, John. So we actually only saw it after the test match, and John had many many a trick up his sleeve, and we were all sort of getting ready to change. And Durban, I know Jamie says this winter, but Durban was actually pretty hot that day in 2009. So we were all getting ready to run the field for warm up, and we see John like sweating in his number ones, having come back from the coin toss, and so he got there like fully dressed in his number ones kit, so his Springbok blazer, his number one clothes, his Springbok cap. And John has very different stories to tell of that day, but I can only imagine what a sight it must have been for Paul O'Connell to see a fully number one kitted John Smith come and do the coin toss. I can only think he came back into the change room and sort of how it was maybe a joke and that we weren't respecting them, and how he wanted the Lions to get them up. But John believes it definitely played a little bit of a psychological game, which gave us the upper hand.
Well, Jamie, what was said then after that the towing cost? Was there any confusion as to be like, well, why was he in his number ones, or was it just like, let's just get on with this?
I can't remember it, so I don't think Paul even told us about it. So yeah, I mean, just on Brian's point and preparing for those games, like we prepared all week for the Boks to come around the corner off 9, and then they're coming at you. I think 5 or 10 minutes in, right hand side scrum, bang, here they come, bang, John Smith goes under the sticks, and we're just thinking, we've prepared for that all week, and it's just happened. And then second half, again, driving maul. We've been defending driving mauls for the month preceding that first test, just knowing full well it's coming, and they just walk in a driving maul from 20 metres out.
Did you prepare for Bryan Habana joining that maul though? Sorry.
We didn't. And in hindsight, do you know what? As a back now, whenever I see an opposition back join the maul, I go and join in defence as well. I'm like, nah, I just can't. I can't be having it. I can't join mauls.
Well, let's talk about that. You scored obviously one of your most memorable tries in the second test. So Brian, take us through, talk us through your memories of that try. You ran a serious line on bod, didn't you?
So I did. I do think Bod's hit on Donnie Rousseau just before that scrum move played a big impact in his decision making. And Jamie, you weren't on the field. You'd already gone off by then, hadn't you?
No, I was on the field.
You were there.
I was on the field. Yeah.
Sorry, you guys went off that. So I think that, and again, I've got a massive amount of respect for Dricker. I think what he's given to the game of rugby is phenomenal. We good mates now on the HSBC sevens, sevens gig, but I just think he was not in the right state of mind. Obviously, it's a training park move that we practiced on many occasions, through the course of our time together at Springboks. And I actually think the uncontested scrum worked against you guys, Jamie, for that.
Yeah, massively. Move. I was going to say that. Because Fourie could get a bit wider. He could stick 10. Jacques could stick me and just open this hole.
Yeah.
That was. I think that was the critical factor. Yeah, it was brilliantly run, etc. Yeah. But usually when that play is played, I can leave 12. I can let my 10 take 12. But because Fourie can get a bit wider, no chance.
Yeah. No, so and then I think just Drico, I don't think he was like mentally present. He was physically present. I just think he was still a little bit dazed. I mean, it was a big hit on Donner. So
Jesus, is a big hit. And see that the game has changed since then. Like that happens now. He's gone. He's off, and he doesn't play next week.
Well,
Brian. So
Skulkberger would also been gone. So
I'm banned for life.
And the Lions tour kind of celebrates all the nations coming together. But there's also, quite a social element to it too. So did both teams get together for a few beers at the end of the 2009 tour? Can you tell us of any good nights out that you may have shared together?
Well,
no.
Do you know what? I was in an ambulance after the second test because of my wrist. So I was in hospital. There were 5 of us in the ambulance. Actually, 4 of us, and Adam Jones had gone ahead because his shoulder was out of place. But I think the lads, did you have a few beers that night at Loftus or not?
So I think we did have a function thing after Loftus. But I think just because of the physicality and ferocity of that series, I do think there was a bit of unheralded animosity between
hate. Let's call it hate. Let's spice it up. Yeah,
a bit of hate. It did feel a little bit awkward. I think after the Durban test, I don't think we both teams sort of knew what to do with that animosity. We really wanted to go freaking proper toil at it, and
Plus, it wasn't right to do it after that first test. You're 1-0 up.
Yeah.
I think it's only right to probably share a few beers once it's been decided. So, as I said, I wasn't around after that second test, but I don't even think after the third test there was.
No, there wasn't.
There was nothing really.
There was maybe a quick function, but yeah. No, so no. On field it was proper spicy, and a lot of ferocity, and I just think that sort of then led to the off-field stuff. So we actually didn't do much togetherness, to be brutally honest, which is sad because I think a lot of us, really do get on extremely well. But I think just in the boiling pot, you sort of just caught in your own environment. So disappointing. But yeah,
the game's changed now though. They'll be meeting up in a week for coffees this year.
Yeah,
have you having beers after every game?
Half the South African side or teammates of the Lions guys up in the UK.
Exactly.
I'd be disappointed if they weren't.
Yeah, exactly.
In bubbles.
And nowadays, we can often find yourself and Brian O'Driscoll promoting rugby around the world with HSBC. And I know that yourself and Bod have been to the Hong Kong Sevens a few times. So, have you got any good stories about Brian when he was out and about on the town?
Or in the South Stand?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to go to my first ever Hong Kong Sevens in 2019, and I've just heard the stories about the South Stand. And if you've never been to Hong Kong Sevens, when the world gets back to normal, book your ticket because it is
it's a joke, isn't it?
It is.
It's another level.
So I got there, and obviously Drico had been on the HSBC Red Polo Gang ambassador tour for a while now, and I actually got and heard that his first tour he was crowd surfing, and I was like, "Jeepers, this is wild! This is wild!" So I was fairly composed, and Drico actually gave me the best piece of advice leading up to that week. He said, "Whatever you do, get the flight back home on the Sunday night." And I was like, "Surely the Sunday night's the biggest part." He says, "Do yourself a favor, get yourself a flight back home on the Sunday night after the final day." So I was a bit of a party pooper. I got my flight back, but the Saturday night, some proper memories made in Hong Kong. The South, if you've ever been to the Hong Kong Sevens, you'll understand the South Stand. And myself, Drico, and George Gregan were on that tour, and we did that thing with HSBC where we took some kids around, and they were just wild. And there was this one Frenchman that gave me half a pint of beer that had been boiling in the sun, and you actually don't even know what's in there. So
I was going to say, you sure it was beer?
Yeah. Oh, I don't do beer, but that was beer taste. It was horrible. But it had been boiling, and then so we got myself, Drico, and George Gregan sculling drinks, on the South Stand, and just that experience was phenomenal. So yeah, I definitely recommend anyone, if you ever do get an opportunity to go to the Hong Kong Sevens, do it, because it's a once in a lifetime memorable experience.
Obviously, it's annoying because I obviously want to chat to you about the cheetah story, like I mentioned, but that's not one of the questions I was told.
I never played for the cheetahs.
Nah, you raced a cheetah though.
Well, I raced many things, not just the cheetah.
I know, but the cheetah thing I told you was the most impressive thing to me. Were you not super scared? Because I was watching back the video and I kind of thought that it was looking at you at one point. And I was
I was absolutely shitting myself. So, okay, quickly. So this all came about by this nature conservation area called the DeVille Cheetah Tracker Program, wanting to highlight the plight of the cheetah becoming an extinct animal. I'm like, yes, I love nature. South Africa, Jamie will know, we, the big five, the game park and stuff over here, it's just insane. And I grew up going on father and son weekends, to the game reserves. And I was like, yeah, I'm all in for, raising awareness about the plight of the cheetah. So it was literally in the middle of Super Rugby. I think it was on a Thursday. We played the Crusaders on the Saturday. Heineke Meyer was absolutely livid when I said, Coach, listen, I'm doing this thing, racing is, you're doing what? It's just like, I'm like warming up, I'm stretching, I'm doing all these things. So we get to this place and I look, and there's like this patchy little piece of grass. And I'm like, okay, well, where's, and they built the stand and everything. I'm like, geez, I thought this was like a low-key event. Like, no, they've flown in international media. And I'm like, you've done what? And they're like, okay, well, you see this patchy piece of grass like running down. I'm like, yeah. They're like, no. So we laid that 3 weeks ago. I'm like a professional rugby player. I'm like, surely like ditches, whatever. They said, no, well, that's the best we could do at such short. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like,
strap your ankles,
strap your ankles, stretch your hammies. I'm like, okay, I'm running here. Where's the cheetah running? So they go, well, you see on this patchy piece of grass, there's like a little string down the middle. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you're on the one side and the cheetah's on the other. I'm like, stop. Say that again slowly. Like, no, you'll be fine. We have one tracker on the course. I'm like, shut up. You got a one tracker on the course. He's got a tranquilizer gun. So I'm like, well, what's gonna firstly stop the cheetah looking at my behind and thinking that's its next piece of ramp? And how good is this tracker shot in 100 meters with a tranquilizer gun? So the freaking thoughts running to my head. And then, obviously I needed a head start because as much as I'd love to rate my speed, going from 0 to 90 kilometers an hour in under 2 seconds, the cheetah it would have had my ass every day of the week. So you can imagine how I'm like shitting myself. And I'm thinking, if this goes wrong, I've got no control over what the cheetah does. I've got no control. Heineken, like SA Rugby is going to be on my head. The Bulls are going to like take my car. I'm standing.
Mate, that's the least of your worries, man. I'd really be worried for your health.
But I'm looking like 30 meters back and I'm thinking, this is wild. What have I got myself into? And then we're like running and I'm just running for my life. I don't even care where the cheetah is. And I'm hearing like this galloping coming towards me, like ever closer. And I'm like, I just got to get to the fence. I just got to get to the fence. Yes, no, it was one of the most stupidest things I've ever done in my career.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool, mate. What do they put on the string? Is it like a little rabbit or something?
So they call it a lure. So it's like a little, I think it was a bunny or a rabbit, like this little thing. And I'm like, so what if it looks up from the lure to my arse and says, okay, well, that rump is definitely, it's like the thoughts running through my head. It was like, and literally, and then it obviously got a lot of publicity for the wrong reasons. And it was Bryan Habana like flaunting how fast it is. I was like, I'm trying to create like awareness about the cheetah becoming an extinct animal. They literally built a grandstand. I think it was like 100 people in this grandstand in a very remote game reserve in South Africa. It was definitely a unique experience. I'm not quite sure running against the A380 surpassed it though. No, that cheetah one was definitely up there.
I think you obviously just learned your lesson from racing against an animal that you were like, I'm going to stick to cars and planes and stuff from now on. They're definitely safer. Oh, I think it was the coolest thing. I love animals. So when I saw that video, I was just like, it's class. So of all the players that you have played against over the years, can you rank like the top 3 best players that you've ever played against?
So Richie McCaw, number 1. The reason is I think Richie, what he achieved as a player and as a captain, for the All Blacks, it's scary to think, that he had this guy that went on to, play World Cup finals with a broken foot. He became the first captain to ever captain his country to 100 Test match wins, which is like, players who want to play 100 Test matches, winning 100 times, and as captain of the All Blacks is just phenomenal. Dark Free, funnily enough, is someone that I've played with, is probably one of the most consistent Springboks ever. He played in that 2009 game with myself and Jamie, and he just never, and he started his Springbok career as a 19-year-old and was just incredible throughout. Number 3, I'm probably going to go Dan Carter. I think DC, what he was able to give the game, in a position that, you have some legends of, the likes of a Johnny Wilkinson, a Matt Giddar, it's just phenomenal players from around the world, go on and win titles. You took brand marketing from a rugby perspective to a different stratosphere, and did it just so well. I think we all had massive jealousy genes just because of Dan, and like he was like this pristine, good-looking guy. I'm like, he's got the talent, got the looks, got the wife, the girls, got everything, and he's got the car deals, the Louis Vuitton deals. He's got all these things. So those three players, I think for me, just consistency. What they gave him for game of rugby. I think Jacques, so I got to play with him, but Dan and Richie was just in a different league in terms of what they achieved.
Well, look, that is class, and that is it from us. So thanks to Bryan Habana and Jamie Roberts, and thanks to you for listening. More offloading next week. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating and review if you can, and don't forget to check us out on YouTube as well. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Bryan. You were amazing.
Rush.
Peace out, y'all. Keep safe. See you soon.
Mate, catch you over the next few months. No doubt. Cheers, brother.